and we had our first startup weekend here in Gisborne, Pascal and Len's, a little while back. And we've signed up to, we haven't signed up yet, but we're coming over to the Tauranga startup weekend.
We haven't signed up yet. Maybe
yeah, so great to be here and see everyone. We are loving our new community that we've found. Yeah.
Awesome.
Hello.
Who's next? Sasha?
Sasha,
I came in late. Are you doing an intro?
No, it's your intro, your turn.
Are we just introducing each other to each other? Is that what it is?
See, around the table.
Oh, kia ora, Sasha here. I'm based in sunny Nelson. Really need to get Startup Nelson kind of delivered here in the region. It's kind of getting a bit flat, so I think it falls on my shoulders. But yeah, known a couple of you guys for a couple of years now, so really good to see all your faces and all your faces. Kind of dropped off conversations lately, haven't we? Well, I have personally. But yeah, here tangata, we'll probably need to look at that too. But I hear to Taira Whiti went really well, so awesome. Ups to you guys. That's me.
Awesome, welcome.
Jen, we've got two Nelson reps. Awesome.
So yeah, hi, I'm Jen from Nelson. I know half of you probably.
Oh, Jen, you are on there. Yay.
I'm on a tablet, so I only see 4 at a time, so I'm constantly swiping around right now. Anyway, so I live in Nelson and been involved with startup weekends. I started in Christchurch, participating and mentoring, and then in Nelson mentoring. And I'm mentoring as well at the Hack Nelson, which is sort of a startup weekend, but it's not. Yeah, just love the buzz that it brings. And yeah, I'm totally keen. So Sasha, if you have any capacity doing something about Startup Nelson, but our main guy is in Europe and the other main guy just became a dad. So I have no hopes that these guys are being involved in this year.
Yeah, I knew both of those that had happened. So yeah, let's catch up. That would be really good.
Sounds awesome.
One piece of news for Nelson, I spent 2 days with the Young Enterprise Scheme coordinators who are based at NMIT, and there was Nick as well from Engagement at NMIT, and they were very keen to find out more about Startup Weekend Nelson or He Tangata, so I'm just passing the message right now.
You've been in Nelson, you didn't say hello, how dare you?
No, I was in Wellington, but with Nelson.
Okay. I'll let you up this time. Thanks though. So Nick at NMIT.
Yes.
Sure.
Anna.
Hi, can everyone hear me? Oh yeah, sorry I'm late. I had to download the app because I didn't have it. But my name's Anna. And I was part of the Startup Weekend Auckland Pacifica, so Colap and Lauren and Pauli helped us out with that. So I'm just started working on my own startup, but I'm really keen to help out in the startup community, especially with the Pacific community as well.
Awesome, welcome Anna.
Welcome. Thank you. So I write everyone has a little turn. It's fantastic that yeah, it's nice to reconnect. And I've clicked on the gallery view. You know, for those of you who are on Zoom, so there's gallery view that actually puts a little tile and we look good. I'm going to take a screenshot right now.
Awesome. Well, I wasn't ready. I think I was blinking.
That was so that you know, because this session is being recorded, okay, so we can have something to move forward with, and there may be some others within our community. There was at least one person on Slack who mentioned he'd like to review what was discussed, so that's why it is recorded, okay? Right, so the idea is Pascal, Collard, and Lingy went to Bangkok. It sounds like a great story, and it was an awesome story. It has been.
It sounds like a movie title, though, doesn't it?
It could be, and you won't believe what happened. next.
And it's 4 chapters, but you need to hang on to the end. And the chapter 1 was to welcome everyone, and I think you've done a really great job of doing that. And the chapter 2 was really, the next thing is, has anyone amongst yourself and been to an APAC summit before? APAC is the Asia Pacific. And what does APAC stand for already? It's the
Asia Pacific.
And what's the
I don't know.
Wow. And the C is
Awesome crowd. I love it. There you go. Asia Pacific. Awesome crowd.
and it may be for AP, but that is one way that Techstars actually cuts the world in order to make these groups of people who, like all of us on this call, are community leaders. That is the referred term. Should you be an organizer or a facilitator, you fall under the term of community leader, and therefore invite on a regular basis. It's maybe once a year, or maybe it's more often. I don't think it is more often. The community leaders in this quite big region to come together. Okay, and it was the first time that I went, and that's what we're going to talk about. But has any of you been before? Jeff, have you been? No?
I haven't been before.
No.
We had Raphael, who's traveling all over the place. He went as part of the group the previous year, I think.
Awesome. So that was that was the one thing. So here we want to share a few highlights. Okay, what is it that it meant to be there? And Collard, what were some highlights for you?
So for me, it was just seeing how Startup Weekend has evolved. We tend to, I think in New Zealand, we have branched the formula a little bit and have become quite isolated in the way it's developed in New Zealand. And for me, it was really striking to see just how the sort of the main batch has been propagating across Asia Pacific. A lot more grassroots, a lot less formalized sort of structure in place. It's a lot more sort of free form, I think, from what I observed. And the other key insight for me was that under sort of more dictatorship style circumstances in those countries, when the dictator wakes up one morning and says, I think startups are really important for our future, then, oh man, a hell of a lot of things just start suddenly moving in that direction. And we certainly got that sense in Thailand, that startups have become an incredibly hot topic for our region. And the amount of investment that is attracting is actually quite staggering. So there's a massive upswing and a spike, I think, in startup activity across the region, and it's attracting a whole raft of different ecosystem components, investors, property developers. It's driving property development on a scale that we can't actually really imagine here. So those are some of the critical takeaways. One pretty big observation to me was a gap, and I think Anna and I caught up yesterday. There was a marked absence of any Pacific Island representation at the Asia Pacific Summit. So that's something I would love to see rectified in future, is to make it easily accessible for our island communities to be represented over there as well.
Thank you. Linyi?
Kia ora, folks. Sorry, I missed a little bit of my introduction. So thanks, Pascal. I'm joking.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. I don't take it personally. Kia ora, community. My name is Lingi. I work at a place called Creative HQ. I'm calling in from Te Whanganui-a-Tara, otherwise known as Wellington. So my involvement in the past couple of years has been in various startup weekends, from health to education to helping spec up the first Startup Weekend Pacifica out in Porirua. What's up? Shout out to Anna. I'm obviously not Pacifica, but we had a bunch of people from the Pacifica background that we brought into the event to help us speak it up, including one of the laughing Samoans. He had me laughing in all sorts of different ways, but Ete was actually the man. It was really cool to be with him and speak it up. And then having spent a couple of days with the most craziest French lady in Tauranga and the guy with the coolest mustache up in Auckland over in Thailand. What I essentially got out of it was that startup weekend. I had a book from chapters 1 to 10, and it had chapter 3 missing, probably chapter 6 and 7, and then I missed chapter 10. And so going over there for me, I found my pages. And I figured out how it all kind of goes like this. Because in the first couple of, say about my first 4 or 5 events, I didn't actually know what it was. I was just figuring it out. I was a volunteer lead, and it was cool. So that was it for me, figuring out what that is. I'll probably go into a little bit more depth about what that means. But that was pretty insightful. And then also just being able to represent New Zealand and know that you're part of a wider picture, and that we were unexpectedly, I wanted to go to learn more about others and what they're doing in their own communities. But actually being the voice of New Zealand was actually pretty cool, because then we actually got out there and said, we do things like Startup Week in Pacifica, of which other communities just stand back and they say, wow, how do we get more of that into what we do? And so this is a massive, just to echo what Kolat said. So that was pretty insightful for me. Pascal, I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you, and apologies, sorry. So there was a couple of things that, the first thing is sometimes I felt I was 10 years in the future over the 3-4 days in terms of the way there was 150 people. So it's not a huge amount of people, just under 150. There was actually 130 people. So it's quite a personal space. So imagine, big meeting room, a big open space. We were in that big open space. It was a co-working space all of the time. So we were with people. The other thing it wasn't odd to be representing a country with an accent from another country. Okay, so that was the type of thing that all the people there were like from somewhere, born somewhere, been somewhere, and active with Startup Weekend somewhere else. So that felt like, okay, that's okay. A lot of people spoke English with an accent, so I was quite at home as well, all right? Although sometimes it became a bit difficult, especially with people from China or from India. So we repeated a little bit, but we got on like a house on fire. So there was a really good way to do this. Then there was the next thing that really was super fascinating for me is to hear some accounts from some of our organizers. So, and dealing into the details. So I didn't know that Bhutan, which is a very small country that I had to look up somewhere on, I had to open the atlas, a Google map, because we met people from Tajikistan, from Bhutan, from Uzbekistan, from countries I didn't even know where they were. And they all do Startup Weekend, and they all use English as the medium to deliver the Startup Weekend, which was quite fascinating as well. And you hear that the Prime Minister of Bhutan is actually decreed that there will be Startup Weekend, I can't remember how many a year, but there needs to be them because the activity of Startup Weekend is actually delivering on the goal of the country, which is to raise happiness, because they do not look at the growth of the country as a GDP, but they use a measure that is the happy, I can't remember the name, but it is to measure the level of happiness of the people living there.
The Gross Happiness Index.
The Gross Happiness Index, thank you, Kola. Yeah. And Startup Weekend was a factor to raise the Growth Happiness Index. And I was like, yes, I can do it as well. So that was really exciting. The level of passion for everyone doing this thing. We met people who'd been facilitating 50 Startup Weekends. Okay, and they travel the world. They are entrepreneurs, they are freelancers, and Startup Weekend is their way of opening doors in the communities in which they arrive. So that was quite fascinating as well. I mean, sitting down with Roy, who was the lead organizer in a city in China, in Chengdu, and his session was about how he works with volunteers and how they, and he opened up by saying, we need 100 volunteers a month to run all the events that we do in a month with Startup Weekend and the Techstars brand. So, and I'm like, how many? How far often? So it was 100 volunteers a month. So that was another totally mind-boggling thing for me. And the other element that I really appreciated was that the first half day was a woman day. So there were about between 30 and 40 women who came together, and actually it was a bit of the celebration of women taking a lead in their community. That we got to talk with investors from Singapore. So it was just a focused conversation. There was quite a lot around mindfulness. It was a very good touch. It may not have been communicated this well as we discussed with Collard and Lingy, who could have arrived the day after. But anyway, they did some bonding as well, I'm sure. There was a swimming pool, there was some beer, there was a lot of things while us women were conferencing. Some other things happened as well. So that was a very good first day. And Bangkok just was so active. I'd not been to Bangkok in 25 years. And frankly, when I had this conversation with one of the organizers from Pakistan, she looked at me and she said, oh, you didn't? I wasn't born 25 years ago. And I went, oh, that's okay. She didn't think, but she did say it. And that was funny. But there was a whole range. It's the mix of people and the passion they had to deliver. So that's what's staying with me right now. Yeah. Mm. And it's funny because 3 weeks, nearly a month on, it's still reliving it right now.
Pascal, yeah. Would this be a good opportunity to maybe open it up to our callers to just kind of share any questions that you might have, anything that we've said so far that you might want to just explore a bit further? I know, Jeff, that you'd very, you'd put in a few questions before we even went. You were one of the very few. In fact, you were the only one who put a question in for us to try and follow through at the event. So just putting it, Pascal, potentially just putting it out to our callers to see if there's something that we could explore a bit further from here.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just jump in, I suppose, because the comment before about how we didn't know about the way that Startup Weekends run other places, and I thought it was a good metaphor and using the chapters missing and stuff. When we had the Christchurch Startup Weekend last year, not this year, we had Daniel, who was probably there, who'd done over 50 Startup Weekends, and I was shocked at how different he was running it, because it never occurred to me that it'd be that different. I knew that we'd changed a few things, but I spoke to him after the first day, and I said, why are you doing it this way? And he says, when he goes into place, and after us he was going to Australia, to the Outback, to run Startup Weekends in the community, he said, I don't expect you to have so much community support as you have here. The mentors come in for 2 hours Saturday, 2 hours Sunday. You had them the whole weekend.
Yeah.
So the whole model for him from America was how to run an event of 30 to 100 people with just him and a couple of people helping with catering.
Yeah.
And it never occurred to me, we've always had huge support from our community of volunteers and mentors and other facilitators and organisers and stuff like that. So that was quite mind-blowing to me. So yeah, it's interesting when you see people running it very differently and it working well for their communities.
He shared quite a few reflections on his experience in Christchurch. Jeff, you guys left a really strong impression with him.
Hopefully positively.
I think it was mixed, actually. Yeah.
Okay.
And he's such a straight guy, and he really does operate from the heart, and he is really, really good. Like Pascal, Lingy, you can probably vouch for it. There were some really critical moments during the summit where you just thought, wow, we're actually really lucky to be connected into that type of thinking. And I think he gave us a really good mirror on on to sort of see ourselves from their perspective, you know. So Daniel, I think, did Christchurch, and there was another guy from New York that did Porirua. And so I think that it's really great. I think it's probably one of the things that we want to look at next is how can we make sure we break our echo chamber effect, you know, or like we're in the hall of mirrors.
Yeah, it's an interesting one though, because it was super awkward during the weekend because we weren't aware of the different style.
Yes.
And so we'd run 5 other startup weekends before, all with people across New Zealand being involved in it, and we didn't sit down and realise we should have talked about the differences that he's had before. And so if you ever have someone from outside New Zealand facilitating or co-facilitating, in the case of Daniel, with me, sit down and go through it much more than you would normally, because it's quite different. And
it's such a good insight.
Yeah, because for example, on the night when you encourage people to get up and pitch their ideas, he's super aggressive. And you know, if you watch the videos, he's got videos of him doing that overseas. He's open about it. You know, like in Australia and stuff, he will basically hound you until everyone gets up and pitches an idea. And we just don't agree. The audience didn't agree in New Zealand. In our crowd, they didn't really agree. And we didn't do it for quite a bit, but it got to the point where people were sort of wondering, like, it's really late at night and you're still trying to push everyone to pitch. So it's just a style. And I think normally we don't have that much difference with people around New Zealand, but certainly from other places, yeah, if you're going to do it, sit down with them and just run through it and make sure you've got some resolved ways of handling some of these things that didn't come up. But yeah, I think people enjoyed him. He was good. He was he'd done a lot of them before. It amazes me that he wants to do so many. I do quite a bit, but he takes it to another level.
He does, hey. I mean, just jamming on what you were saying about that sort of reluctance to get the pitching started. I mean, Anna, I wonder if you wanted to comment on how we went with the startup weekend Auckland Pacifica. It was a long, long conversation, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think like for the community that we targeted for the SUWAP was really interesting to see the level at where the people were at, and it's really just tailoring the program to where their needs are in order to bring them up to the next level so that they can still feel empowered by the program or the way Startup Weekend is run. And in terms of like getting the people to share their ideas and to pitch, they didn't really just jump up and do it straight away. We kind of had to encourage them a little bit, but I think with culture as well, it's really important to understand that there are some do's and don'ts, but it was a really good experience to have, because even I didn't really understand either. So and Cola and the team were really helpful in trying to help us out, and so there's a lot of learning there. But yeah, like I agree, like our different styles and our different ways of doing things, it's just understanding that the program will work, but it's cool that we can tailor it to our style. So I think that was something that I took out of SUWAP, was that, you know, the program is there for a reason, and you can still implement it in the way that best suits your needs and still get the same or a similar outcome. And then the next one will be even better and better.
And now I met we met lots of people, but there was a young woman I met there. So we were paired. We had like a hidden name, and then we got to meet someone and then just exchange on a more personal basis if we wanted to throughout the 3 days. And a tip for self, if you ever go in a trip related to Startup Weekend, overseas where you're going to meet others from the community, take t-shirts, as in like t-shirts from your team on your event to give away over there. You know, you might pile up some t-shirts that never got given away. We do in Tauranga. Take them with you. And I just regretted that I didn't take enough t-shirts. I wish I took a lot more. I took one, and so we exchanged it. But the reason why I raised this particular person from a smallish town in Malaysia. So she's been running several businesses for herself, and they would be more like, you know, more traditional businesses, more brick and mortar businesses. And she is planning to open a co-working space. And she saw Startup Weekend as as a means to activate the community to Startup Weekend. So she was at the summit and she just participated in one Startup Weekend and had never run it. And she was like, wow, the amount of things that I need to do in my community, people won't stand up and talk. So she was also trying to find a way, how does the framework of Startup Weekend work and delivers what it delivers, but how it can be changed to fit where it is delivered. And I find that while I was energized by this Daniel Johnson that you mentioned, Jeff, part of me was a bit jarred with the way he approached, the way he would deliver, because I felt that it was quite an imposing way, and that it didn't actually go a little more deeply into the model that Startup Weekend can give us, that it actually flexes and that it needs to take account the community, and through being invited to an event like your event, because it wasn't by chance that he got there, what are some questions he could have asked? So while I accept that we can be open to other ways, I think that if we're stepping in a role of facilitator, there needs to be some conversation prior. So good on you to go with the flow and continue with the conversation and leave a really awesome impression as well and experience. But that's the type of thing that I got to think a bit more about over these 3 days with all these people. We met, and that's the last point I made, one of the men, the Thai people was our host, AIM, is one of these facilitators that's been around the world and done several tens of Startup Weekends as facilitator. And he was a facilitator at Startup Weekend Mega in Singapore. And they have this event with over 550 participants.
Wow.
Can you imagine the length of the pitch night? When people are going to pitch an idea, because everybody wants to pitch an idea, and there's 550 participants. So that's just the type of context in which this event that we've run in small communities with 30, 40, 50 participants actually can stretch to 550. So that is the beauty of this framework that we have.
So AIM is also on the Edmund Hillary. He's one of the Edmund Hillary Fellowship entrepreneurship visas. So he was on the first cohort, and he loves New Zealand. Hey, Pascal, he's like, that was one of the big things we got out of the whole event. Was like, there's just so much love for what's going on in New Zealand that I think you're just kind of worth putting it out there. As you can tap that, so we can probably attract some pretty amazing thinking back in, energy and sort of vigor back into our community from overseas as well. Sorry,
yeah,
Pascal.
We see that time and time again in Christchurch, the amount of people that come from overseas and want to go to New Zealand or see the place or come back and things like that. So it doesn't seem very difficult to get people to come here. Sometimes it's far away from them, so that can delay things. But like when Daniel, he was traveling around Europe and then through here and then to Australia and then back and stuff. So it was part of a journey for him, which was good. Yeah, I agree, actually. I think that probably could have been something that he'd done to understand the community. I suppose what I found is that his approach was really the American approach, the original approach. Ours was the one that's changed. So maybe it didn't occur to him that people did things differently than they did.
Can I just say cohort 4 is open for the Edmund Hillary Fellowship. They had 12 Kiwis in cohort 3 and 8 in cohort 2.
Interesting. Is that a trend?
I did ask the question why we had Kiwis actually in the fellowship for grounding in terms of having a connection for our overseas cohort members.
Yeah, I'm friends with some people that are New Zealanders in Edmund Hillary, and they're still asking the question about why they're there. So I think it will take time for them to work it out, really, on that side of it.
I'm cohort 2, so I'm still working it out.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what is it worth responding to Jeff's question? I don't know if you want to restate it, Jeff, but it was something along the lines of tell us about Techstars and what are their intentions with Startup Weekend, and what kind of support, if we were kind of isolated, what's the point of connecting to Startup Weekend if you could just kind of set your own brand up? What's the compelling value proposition of being connected in with Startup Weekend? Does that sort of paraphrase what you had in mind there?
Yeah, I think so. It's been something we've asked a little bit, and I think since they bought it, and they did save it, and we should give them a props for that. We probably would have gone away if they hadn't done it. They are a for-profit organisation, and they've got accelerators in Australia, and they said they're looking to do that in New Zealand. So I understand why they do it. But we have found in the last few years in Christchurch anyway that they've been more hindrance than help. It would have been easier to not have them involved, which is a real shame because their systems are harder than if I just did it myself or one of my teams did something. So and then recently, to give you a comparison, I suppose. So many of you may know Kyla Colburn from Christchurch. She runs what was Singularity University. They've had a bit of a falling out in a way, not a major thing, but now they've relaunched a thing called BOMA.
I caught up with her yesterday.
Yeah, right. So again, they've got to the point where the model wasn't necessarily the best way for them to go forward. She's still doing TEDx, obviously with TED, and the team doing other things. But it's like for us, like exactly what is the best way to do community development? Someone want to jump in?
No, sorry, it's a bit of background noise here.
Oh, okay. So just a long running thing. For us, it's actually more awkward to have them involved. I've told them many times, I think they do more marketing so that when we run an event, someone's heard of it before and actually there's some demand, but they do really none.
They've got little or no presence in New Zealand. But I mean, Pascal, Lingy, I think it's worth sharing a bit of our thoughts on it, because I think that was kind of a subject for us during the summit. We were actually quite blown away by them as an organization. I mean, they're a B Corp. They show up as for impact. You're absolutely right. The story goes, as the stories go, it was, Startup Weekend had fallen on hard times with Up Global, and they literally, kind of rescued it. They kind of caught it at the brink. But I think we've gotten to know, just from the summit at least, we've gotten to know a little bit. They provided the founder of Techstars. They gave us a view on just how broad and complex their organization is. They're quite staggering in scale and activity. So our outcome was left with these great impressions of a 21st century sort of exponential organization. They did feel like that, and the staffers were, in my opinion, quite humble and accessible, and they were having these great frank open conversations, and they had kept they're trying their best to keep Startup Weekend as a community build, and there's a Lolita, and they've got so it was interesting to just see the anatomy of what was behind. To us is really a veil. From New Zealand, you can't see behind the veil, so it was really interesting to see what is actually behind the veil in terms of infrastructure and all the rest of it. They still lack, I think, I think we still see that the infrastructure is creaking, but also there's not a lot of appetite, and detect a lot of appetite to change that. And one of the reasons, I think, and just from observing, and we've sort of highlighted a little bit of that, I think it has to do with that the formula is actually quite grassroots and pretty, that Daniel Johnson model is not that uncommon. It's pretty fast and loose on the ground. So it actually has very lean infrastructure. And I think that New Zealand, and certainly our reputation in the mix, is that we're quite demanding. As a country, and that they don't experience that kind of pressure from other countries and other regions. So just kind of putting that into the mix. I don't think we actually got an opportunity to challenge them directly with the question. I think we tried with Anurag and a few others to just kind of confront them more directly as, what are your intentions with this brand? Where are you actually going with it? And really just got wishy-washy answers. I don't know, Pascal, if you want to. Or maybe I'm being too harsh, but I didn't get a sense of any really tangible sort of structure or anything I could get my hands on, and substance in what they answered.
Well, Lingy, we haven't heard from you. What do you think?
Go. Tell me. Sorry, I'm going to implement a thumbs up and a thumbs down. So Thumbs up to the camera if you think Techstars is a help, and thumbs down if you, in your community, think Techstars has been a hindrance. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Down, down, up. Oh, Tarafari's confused. Hold on. Same with Auckland. Auckland's confused too. Oh no, wait. Jen, Nelson. Oh no, oh wait. Oh my God. Oh no, what has happened here? This is exactly what I mean.
I can explain mine. So my experience initially, my first sort of contact with the whole startup weekend thing was in Christchurch. And as Jeff was not explaining, but commenting on, Christchurch, because it's kind of in this beautiful cocoon of Ministry of Awesome, they already have an existing organization that is very good at running events, getting people together, communicating well, no matter what network you're using. Even though I'm no longer on Facebook since 2 years, I hear about BOMA, I hear about stuff, you know, I'm involved in that. So that is amazing in Christchurch. And I've been in Christchurch through the earthquakes, and I think that this was something that the city was not needing, but it brought them together as a community because of the resilience, and we have to make something happen now. And that was an incredible thing, and I cannot explain it to people who have not been there in that time. Yeah. Now, being in Nelson, whenever I hear, oh, there's a startup weekend in Nelson or hackathon, I'm like, wow, startup weekend is going to be amazing and buzzing, because of my initial experiences that I had with Ministry of Awesome and with then them using Techstars. So now hearing from Jeff again that the Singularity and Kyla or whatever has not worked out, I can totally see why Ministry of Awesome is fast and effective and efficient at running stuff. So Techstars may be a hindrance. But I said this because in Nelson, they don't have that here. We have to do it all by ourselves, and usually people have a lot to do. And then Techstars can be that little bit of nudging along, like here's the next checklist, here's the slideshow, here's what you can say, here's what you can put on your website, and then it's a help. So it really is, again, it's like the guy
it depends, right?
It's a culture thing. You know, and it's so funny when Pascal said, I was jarred by this guy, and Pascal, we facilitated together that you are scared. I mean, this is funny for me to hear that this guy was kind of almost overwhelming you. You're mute.
Jen, just for the record, did you say that I'm scary?
No,
scared.
We're almost offended by this guy's facilitation methods, and knowing how powerful you are, you're like the French firecracker, and facilitating is like, whoa, she's there, you know, she knows what she wants, she tells the crowd what to do. And when you are now saying he almost intimidated me, I'm like, I kind of want to see this guy now.
Yeah.
Can you send the video links around?
There is a few. Lingy, that was awesome, and I think it also comes from an optics way. What is it that we need? We feel we need Techstars. Like Techstars is the owner of that brand Startup Weekend, and yes, there are tools like sign-up tools. There's way we've all muscled in and find some ways. We do a bit with the Techstars, we do a bit without. Once we've had 1 or 2 events under our belts, we kind of get better at what we want to message, and the pictures we want to use, and the people we want to reach out to bring in the money, and the mentors, and everyone who makes this thing happen. So when I put my thumbs up to Techstars, because I think that's a result of having, you know, like that sounds like, oh, that's it, she's a fangirl, right? But, you know, she's been invited to go to the big thing, and she's been wine and dine. And I tell you one thing about the whining and dining, there was not a lot of whining, just to let you know, but there was a lot of excursions and really big dinners, because the one thing that Techstars has is they have a massive network. And I believe, although I haven't asked the question, but I have a strong inkling that all of these excursions, like on a boat, on the river, just for 150 people from community leaders, on the buses, you know, like big excursion, that was paid for by their partners. So that's Google for Entrepreneurs. There are loads of investment committee. So that was all paid for. Techstars never put their hand in their pocket to actually take us for dinner. Okay, so there is something bigger in terms of, what network does it leave our Startup Weekend alumni who walks away from Startup Weekend to longer? That now, with just that knowledge that they're there, can find their way in Bangkok, in Chicago, in Paris, and actually, like this Daniel Johnson that we're talking about, saying, hi guys, I did Startup Weekend in Nelson. It's pretty cool down there. It's in New Zealand. You should go there sometime. I'm getting that started. I see you're running a Startup Weekend. Oh, cool. Can I help? Oh, can I sit in that co-working space for a bit because I'm working on building my team here or whatever. That is exactly what it delivers. And I've seen it in action with these 150 odd people who came from all walks of life. And they had only one common word, which was kind of sesame. And the sesame wasn't Techstars. The sesame was Startup Weekend. And that opened a lot of their doors. And that's why I'm kind of like, yeah, Techstars in some ways, I can take or leave what you can give us. You're not ramming it down my throat that I have to put all your logos throughout the weekend on everything. You're giving me a branding kit now, which is a lot better than when I started doing Startup Weekend 4 or 5 years ago, where I had to make up the kit. Okay, so there's been some improvements. They've been incremental. They are effectively dealing with all of us here, time 10, all over the world, and with the various flavors in which we show up in the world. So what I'm saying is like, yes, I don't like their way of doing the ticketing. Their swoop thing is a rot. It's wasting so much time. Like the way you need to have them respond to an answer is like far too slow. But then I'm thinking startup style as well. And I'm thinking, okay, I wish I can answer to all my emails within 5 days. I wish, and when we see the resources. So I'm still mixed, but in fact, what it allows me more clearly to say now is that I've experienced for self that connection to the rest of the world. How might we, collectively and independently from our region, actually find the way to leverage this? And how might we put some checks and balances, either collectively or independently from each other, on what it means from within our community? And what are and how might we also deal with the increases demands from Techstars, should there be any, in the way that we deliver Startup Weekend? I'm not feeling more pressure personally as an organizer to do things any differently than I did 4 years ago when it belonged to a global. That's my experience. So that's what I wanted to share with you.
Nice.
I appreciate it, actually. I think that we did have different thumbs up and thumbs down because of different aspects of it. I agree. I think that I've found Startup Weekend over the last 6 years to be an amazing part of my life. And, I think it's done a lot of things that have been exceptional, I suppose. I suppose one angle I look at it is the way I look at products. It doesn't matter if it's the best product out. People that use your products often look at what changes and improves since they last used it, like last year. And that's my issue really with them, is that they seem, as Colette said, they have no interest in really investing in parts of this. So the swoop thing, the Eventbrite stuff, the communication, yes, they updated the deck, but it seemed to be without involving us and putting Techstars everywhere and rechanging the logos. So both in Dunedin and Christchurch, we used part of it. We certainly didn't, as you say, use everything. We don't know I think we meant to use all of it, actually, but we just didn't. We took the view like you did and sort of adapting it. And of course, no one knows that we did that really in the wide world of Techstars, so we just did, and it went down fine. But we certainly didn't push Techstars Startup Weekend as the name of it all the way through. I just think that they could up their game a little bit on certainly promotion. I think it'd be nice if people have heard of Startup Weekend before we had a region opening up their event for ticket sales. It wasn't like a cold sell every single time. And if we compare what they've done recently with what the Startup New Zealand people did originally, there's no comparison. I mean, the team did an exceptional job of bringing Startup Weekend to New Zealand with people in regions over a number of years. And I know they can't really do that from Malaysia where she's based, but it just seems like we get very little. And with the frustrations, it wouldn't be very hard like other groups do it to create your own brand. So it's been talked about. We probably won't do it straight away, but yeah, it's an open question, I suppose, from our point of view.
Yeah.
So
Anyone else's views? I mean, I'd love to hear people's views.
Well, if we Kiwis seem so special with our needs and requirements for what we want, what would be the next logical step? So I'm assuming that especially the Christchurch people who have a lot of experience running it very, quick, sweet, efficient, simple, should we put our own kit together? One, how to do a startup weekend, tick, 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 here are a couple of checklists, here's how you get the money in, here's how you approach sponsors. Would that be a better way than working with some of the Techstars stuff that is clearly not working for everyone?
We had the same discussion at the summit, and then times that question like 50-fold. 25 countries represented, 110 delegates, and each one of them having their own communities that they pulled together. And we started talking about, well, let's get an open conference format. Let's get a group that's looking at just the sponsorship kit, and we generated the whole thing. And again, it was like 50 different recipes, all I don't know. I've got to say it would probably be a bit noisy, and the feeling I'd have is there's so many of these sort of very quick start sort of recipe kits out there that I don't know if that's a step in a good direction. Sorry.
A good question, Jen. I mean, I don't know the answer yet, and we're just sort of being open to what happens and things. But I suppose my concern is Startup Weekend format is incredibly resilient. It's quite magical how you can make mistakes, forget things, adapt, and it works really well in lots of locations.
That's true.
It's quite incredible, right? But the structure of the organisation doesn't seem to have an improvement cycle in it. It doesn't seem to have a way that it adapts and gets better because of its community feeding stuff back into it, and that's a major issue because it's going to falter if it doesn't do that. So it's great that the 130 people or whatever had an amazing event, and it looked good from our side as well. We loved the updates you gave us as you were there. But what are they doing to incrementally improve and to take feedback and to do it? And if you don't do that, it's going to be a real issue, I think. So that's what I'm worried about, is the model of the organisation.
So the conclusion, and that's been weighing heavily on me, Jeff, and I'd love to hear Pascal and Lingy's thoughts. On reflection, it's been like almost a month now. I think that we are the change that we've been waiting for. Like, that's the thing that keeps playing for me, is like we can't wait for Techstars or some parental mechanism to kick in. It's actually pretty much on us to work the recipe forward, and the frontier I don't think many of us have sort of explored enough is to pare it back. What if it's become a little bit overdeveloped, and what if we want to just actually improve it by just cutting back a bit? And that's the thing that's playing for me, is like leaning the recipe out a little bit and getting it a bit more simple. But you're right, I don't see a natural mechanism in the mix at the moment for improving and taking what's the next frontier. Pascal, Lingy, I might be forgetting something. I mean, there were a few really inspirational thoughts shared from David, the founder, David Brown, the founder of Techstars, and a gentleman, I'm forgetting his name now, but Pascal, we met him at the airport towards the end.
Yes.
He's heading up the Perth accelerator. And I got a sense that the Techstars marketing machine follows the accelerators. And if we don't have an accelerator in New Zealand, then we don't get the Techstars marketing machine. So I wondered if there's a clue in that. But what was that guy's name?
Terry.
Yes. Terry Gold.
And Terry Gold.
Yeah.
I think that I can feel there is something there. I believe, like any organization, as we found out, so it's a B Corp, so it will make money somewhere and give money towards something. I suspect that the Startup Weekend is the something where the impact money is being, diverted to. yes, there is a massive growth from what we understand around the type of accelerators that are being opened the world over. Okay, and around those accelerators, there seems to be the strengthening of ecosystems. So that means that there's resources dedicated locally and certainly co-founded locally in order to get that accelerator to become a thing, which would then have some knock-on effect on the resources that are actually put together and accelerating the community with the community event like Startup Weekend. That's what that sort of comes into my head. And the way that what I also found out is like, because following some of the news, more and more of those accelerators the world over, it seems that there's a very strong focus on making this work. So and the question might be, if making this work and work better, then more resources might continue to be devoted to the charity part of the business, let's say, which is Startup Weekend. This is where we're at. That's a possibility. I haven't got the answers, but also I don't think
that's a very good comment, actually.
Yeah.
So just to play back what I think I heard there, Pascal, that the kind of parent brand is more likely to invest in your community if you've bought something from them. And when we asked them, you know, what would it take to get a Techstars presence in New Zealand, we were directed to their local sales, account manager. And so kind of just, yeah.
I know, and to parry it back a wee bit from that, what I'm also seeing is that there is that possibility. The one thing is that what we have not heard, everyone is interested. So from the C-suite people who were there, we had a chance to talk with the VP of community, the VP of business development. All were there and massively available, interested in New Zealand as a whole, a bit curious of where this place is. But also, you know, having a lot of lofty ideas of what New Zealand might offer, but also the sense of like what is happening in terms of what is investable. What, you know, there's a lot of this without giving it a lot of thought, because there's a lot of places that come ahead of New Zealand in that field in front of them. So to me, it's a sweet spot right now. But is for our communities, how might we leverage that relationship to Techstars without having to go on to some maybe more difficult conversations with Techstars the minute they come and start investigating if there might be a space for an accelerator in New Zealand. We haven't heard that there is anybody who's talking about this as such. I haven't heard that conversation. So the view I take is like, this is the awareness that I'm coming back from having met Techstars within the framework of this summit, and having that awareness and actually being able to continue to be in that conversation, and that the community leaders that we all are would be the first port of call and the first funnels if there were any conversation about that, rather than any other organization in our country. So that's the way I'm thinking about it.
Just real quickly, just to touch on that. I'm sorry, I have to leave in about 2 minutes. We did spec up an hour for this, and hopefully everyone who's come in here has got a little something. You've given up your hour right after Thursday, so I really do appreciate it. I'm going to sign off in a minute. I really just wanted to say that it's evident that we're all like this at every degree. We're not going to solve it within the next 30 seconds, but just to echo what Kola and Pascal did say, there's elements in there that you can take, and there's elements in there that you can push away. I'll be available on email, coming up to Auckland, down to Christchurch. Looking forward to meeting you. Finally, Jeff. Sorry, Nelson or Tairawhiti, I'm not, but I'll see you back in Tauranga, hopefully, when you two do come up with Pascal towards the end of August. I just did want to say thank you very much. Reach out to me at any time. I'd love to take the conversation further. It's just unfortunate that we can't do it here, but my email is just on the Creative HQ website. So ping a message to me. I'm happy to jump in. Maybe we'll do another one of these. I'll probably ask Pascal or Kola, we'll chat. Maybe a part 2, who knows? But thank you very much, and hopefully we'll catch up.
Awesome.
Everyone of here.
Thanks, Lingy.
Kia kite, Lingy, thank you.
Yeah,
And
thank
yes,
you.
we did set out for an hour, and we've just gone on the hour, so we're just going to wrap up. So the way to wrap up is there's 2 things: that any other comment or questions that we can capture, and then the second thing, there are 3 main resources, and I'll do my piece. There are 3 very interesting resources that I think I've come back with that I wasn't aware of. So I will put them in the Slack channel. They are regarding the list of community leaders and how you might be able to, you know, where you can go to put your contact details. The other thing, that the new branding kit is actually making sense even people who are not in marketing or in design. There is an upcoming community call to meet one of the founders of and developed it from Boulder, who is Brad Feld, who is called the name. And the last thing I will share with you is the video of Startup Weekend Singapore with 550 people, because if you have 4 or 5 minutes, it's really worth watching. That's it from me, and I'll let you go around the room, and I'll get Kola to say the final words. Thank you very much. I look forward to meeting you in person, Anna. I haven't met you. Thank you very much for all the support that is happening in Auckland and your interest. We need more people coming in. I feel I've been doing this for a little bit too long, and that's what I'm trying to do in Tauranga. And nobody came into Tauranga because they've gone to a meetup to talk about Tauranga Startup Weekend. So this is
Awesome.
is cool. This is cool. So until we meet Jen, Renee, and Jeff, Tauranga, Christchurch, there's 1 direct flight, you know. Just say.
Just say, yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Yes.
To everybody that got this happening. So, Lingy, Kola, Pascal, for going across and spending your time at the event and giving us those updates while you're away and arranging this webinar to give us more insight. So, big thanks to you, and also to everyone else that turned up, because it is a community, and it's been an amazing one for me, and it's great to see some new faces and some people being part of it. So, thanks to everyone else as well.
Awesome.
Well, they say
Thank
80% of success is just showing up, so here we are, eh?
Love that.
Lovely to meet all of you.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Kind of final note, something to think about. I wonder if this is our chapter close, chapter opening moment. You know, we're kind of closing the chapter of kind of what got us here, and we're opening up the chapter of where we could go next with this. And it's so great to see all of the people on this call and beyond that are going to help us author that chapter and kind of put what's in there. And I think one of the things that just to kind of leave us as the final seed is that I wonder if the mandate or the purpose of Startup Weekend as an instrument, what are we actually using it for, has shifted from generating entrepreneurs to inspiring problem solvers, inspiring problem solving and problem solvers in our communities. So we start to broaden that right out, and that's certainly something that's sitting well with me and us. So yes, thank you very much, everyone. Again, lots of Startup Weekend love, and really hope and looking forward to crossing paths with all of you again. And yes, ka kite anō. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.